Better start swimming. You're in the water.
I actually took that picture.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very cool.
No Photoshop. All 3 boats were actually there.
Oh, all right. How are you doing?
Doing all right.
Good.
Today's day the war stopped, so I did make it this year.
Oh, okay. The day the war stops? But,
Yeah, up in St. Francisville, Louisiana, they're doing reenactment.
oh, okay.
The day they stopped the war to do a Masonic funeral.
Oh, very cool. All right. That's right. I had heard about
A
that.
Confederate officer gave his grave to a fallen Union uh, officer that was on a gunboat. Had died, and they were, you know how hot it gets down here.
Yep.
Had died, and under flag of truce, some men went ashore to find a Mason to do a Masonic funeral for him because they knew he was a Mason.
Cool. There he is.
Hey there. Sorry, I was having a little bit of technical difficulties with my audio, but now it's fine.
Sorry.
One of the amateur radio operators I've talked to is a Mason. Yeah, I forgot what state he's in, but he's at a Masonic and Eastern Star home.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lodge, the Daylight Lodge there.
Good morning, Brother Bennett.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Good to have you with us today.
So it's 10 o'clock y'all's time, right? In Virginia.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Yes. Yeah, we're still in the people trickling in phase.
Cool.
Good to have you with us. And I have someone trying to join. I want to see Brian. Normally Brian is ready to join.
And by the way, we haven't discussed this, but I do have a book concept that I don't know how it's going to project online, but I do. It's interpretive methodology for symbolism.
Oh, okay.
So we could do probably 2 parts of it. Well, maybe, and then I usually have 3 sections, and the third one's, when I do it in person, is a lot more interactive at the end of it. We'll chat more. I just want to bring it up while you and I were on the same wavelength there.
Okay. Yeah. Did we talk about you being a prisoner, Jeff?
I mean, I think you know that I'm doing that online and in person pretty regularly. I mean, I have.
Okay.
And usually it skews a little bit more. I guess the thing that skews a little bit more is since I usually do, chapter council, occasionally commandery.
Right.
Invitational York Rite bodies. And this is more universal. It can go, I can even give this with EAs.
Okay. I would love to hear more stuff about, especially about the council. The Royal Arch, the York Rite doesn't get covered as much, I think, in topics.
Yeah, I can do that. I just would want that to be, so the discussion and questions I could answer. I didn't want everybody to be a Royal Arch Mason or a Select Master or a, whatever, fill in the blank.
Right.
Just, it's more for that. I mean, I don't know really if what I'm telling is that,
it's not that it's a secret. It's just you need the basis you need the common ground. Otherwise you won't follow what's going on, kind of.
Well, or somebody's going to ask me a question that's, we get into modes of recognition and and things like that. Right. And so, yeah.
Good morning, Graham.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Glad to get you in here. I was like, click okay, let him in. Okay, let him in. Okay, all right. Happens that way sometime. Morning, Dustin. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
It's part of why I'm stalling a little bit is normally Brian is our co-host and he hadn't shown
Hey, Jeff, where do you reside at?
I live in Arlington, Texas. The Arlington is named after that Arlington.
Oh, really?
And our first worshipful master of Johnson Station Lodge that was founded in 438, that was founded in 1875. Whenever they were deciding that they're going to move about 3 miles north into what's now downtown Arlington, I actually live in the Johnson Station area. The cemetery is right across the street from my house, and the old cemetery. And his name was Hayter, Hyter.
Mm-hmm.
And thank goodness he understood that linguistics would change over the years. And 100 and something years later, we would have been Hatersville, Texas.
Yeah.
If they'd had, if the townspeople, if Andrew Hayter hadn't have said, no, let's name it after Robert E. Lee's ancestral home of Arlington.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that's a good move.
And yeah.
Yep. I've been to Arlington many a time. That's where one of our other research lodges meets. A. Douglas Smith, a lodge of research meets. They used to meet until recently at the George Washington National Masonic Memorial. Get all the words in there, which is a gorgeous building. But there's several lodges. They meet there regularly, and they just started meeting at a different one in the area. I think in Annandale. But yeah, that's the George Washington Memorial is just a gorgeous building. I mean, it's just, and all 50 states, all 50 Grand Lodges participated in building it, which I think is great. It's like 100 some years ago. They all went out and got people active in every single state to raise money and whatever. And there was a huge turnout to when they dedicated 100 or so years ago.
Yeah, so we actually, whenever we go through our mysteries of Freemasonry and become an apprentice Mason in the Grand Lodge of Texas, we actually get a certificate that a part of our degree fee went to pay for the upkeep of that building.
Oh, cool.
So a lot of us, whenever we get to go to Washington, D.C. for good old Masonic Week and things like that, and those of us that are connected to Sean Iyer, I got connected to him whenever Brad Billings was our worshipful master. We made a little trek one night over to that building, and Sean was there to help us kind of see around, and we did a quick, really, I want to go back on another tour because I really don't feel like I've seen the building. Walked in, took a picture. Oh, wow, that's a big statue. Okay, let's go to this part of the building. Oh, wow, that's a really beautiful theater, type thing. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like the Scottish Rite, the House of the Temple there in DC, where it's like you can take a tour and you may see a third of the rooms. It's just there's so much to take in. Oh, good morning or good afternoon, Brian. Nice to be with us.
Good afternoon, Chris. Apologies for being a bit tardy. I was up cleaning up the chickens.
That's all right. I see you were let out of the storage closet, so you actually earn a room in your house now.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, the wife's gone away, so I'm on my own, so I can do what I want.
Oh, good. All right.
Freedom.
You have your library in the background.
Well, this is one of the lounges. The library's upstairs in another part of the house.
Oh, okay. See, I always want that. It's like all I've got are like bedrooms and kitchens and such. I want to have a library and a study and a smoking room and an office. So it should have all of those things.
Of course, everyone should.
I'd be happy if I just had a smoking room inside the house. It's like, oh, it's raining. I can't have a cigar. Sucks. Well, there's no comfortable chairs in the garage. The pretty much the only place I can sit is either out on the porch or in the garage. Open up a door and, just not the same. I need a nice comfortable room with, nice big leather chairs and a lot of books on the walls and just sit there and drill my cigar. All that
exactly.
Stuff. That's right. I need to work towards that. Yes. Nice as it is to sit outside some days, like, man, it's just so much an effort to go out there. So, morning, Brother Terry. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you, brother. It's good to see y'all this morning or evening is the case for some of you.
Well, it's still early afternoon in England, but it's Let me get, Lordy, 1 in the morning or something for Graham, right? Is it 1 or 2?
No, midnight. Just gone midnight.
It's midnight now. Okay, see, time zone and whatever.
Midnight
Okay,
tomorrow.
all right. Oh, good to have you with us. Well, very early good morning to you, Graham.
Good to see you, Brian.
That's Graham.
So, well, we seem to have people trickling in, so it's kind of delayed a little bit. It seems to be one of those days where people come in late. I saw, you never know. This is the difficulty about this is you never know how many people are going to turn up. I mean, just kind of a guess. You just sort of wait and see. Because even though we put it on Facebook, I don't trust that. You know, you had 4 going and 27 interested. So if I go off of that, of the 4 people, not counting me, none of them are here. Of the interested, oh yeah, Alan's not here. Clark is normally in his car. There's Jeff. And yep. So of the people who confirmed on Facebook, only 3 of us are here. So, you know, you can't rely on that at all. I mean, Rodney didn't even confirm that he was going to be here, needs the speaker. But it cracks me up. But it's like, you know, the speaker checks off, yes, I plan to attend. Well, I certainly hope so. So anyway, so if any of you do these Facebook events, you can't rely on people saying they're going to show up. Just it's not even in any way an accurate barometer of attendance at all. So we get what we get. So it's 15 after. I guess I'll do my official thing. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Virginia Research Lodge number 1777's unstated meeting for June the 8th. My name is Chris Douglas. I'm senior warden and all-around web guy for Virginia Research Lodge. And I'm going to put in the chat a few links for people. It might actually apply to some people here who aren't already in our grouping. And oh yeah, let me go ahead and add Brian as my co-host. Here we go. So we have our Facebook group is there, and that's where you can find all of our weekly research papers will be posted there, as well as events like this one and other Masonic discussions people like to add. So if you're a member of our Facebook group, please add some content. We'll have some more content there. Next is our lodge website, which is planned for an upgrade soon, I promise. And all of our papers can be found there. And then we have a link to our YouTube channel. If you want to watch previous videos, we have about 50 or more up there on YouTube. I am behind. I have 3 that I haven't pushed to YouTube yet, so I'm working on that. And finally, my email address if you are not on Facebook and you want to get on our research paper mailing list. Facebook's the best way to get a hold of me, but you can always email me as well. So, and if you are watching us on YouTube right now, please like and subscribe. That helps us out tremendously. Let's see, Brother Aday is joining us. Good to have you with us, brother. And I'll give him a sec to connect to audio.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. And Brother Dykes, welcome. So glad all of you here today. We have 10 people. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Brother Rodney. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and go ahead and start with your presentation, because I've been vamping for about the last 15 minutes, so kind of out of stuff.
Yeah. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening.
And sorry, do you need to present? I always need to ask that ahead of time. Do you have something to put up on the screen, or is just you talking?
Yeah, I'll share my screen once I...
Okay, let me give you permissions then. Sorry, I should always learn to ask that before I introduce you. But again, Brother Rodney, who will go ahead and introduce himself.
Right on. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I am Rodney McGillvary. I reside in Fort Wayne, Indiana, here in the United States. My mother lodge is Leo Lodge, number 224 in Leo, Indiana. I'm also a founding member of a traditional observant lodge, the Lodge of St. Andrews in Auburn, Indiana, as well as I'm also a founding father of the newest lodge in the state of Indiana, Circumpunct Lodge number 777, and we are an esoteric focused lodge. I have a background in alchemy as well as ceremonial magic and other forms of spiritual philosophy. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right, is it popping up okay for everybody?
Yep, that's it.
All right, so this presentation is titled Introduction to Spagyric Alchemy. I began my journey into Hermetic philosophy and alchemy during my younger days when I joined the Esoteric Order of the Golden Dawn, which is a branch of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn is a Western mystery school whose aim is to bring its practitioners into contact with their higher self, or what is known as the Holy Guardian Angel, through the application of ceremonial magic and alchemy. This involves learning a vast and highly syncretic system of correspondences, which utilizes the Kabbalistic tree of life as a path to back to the divine source. This path is an initiatic one offering a system of grades where the neophyte alchemically transmutes different elements of oneself that pertain to each grade. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was founded in 1887 by 3 Freemasons in England, William Westcott, who was also a prominent member of the SRIA, Samuel McGregor Mathers, and William Woodman. Considering these founders were also Freemasons, there are many similarities to the structure of the initiations, as well as the setup of the lodge. In the lodge, you'll find 2 pillars of Boaz and Jachin, checkerboard tile floors, similar officer structure, as well as the candidates being hoodwinked during the initiations. Since there is also a Rosicrucian influence, alchemy plays a major role within the order. This is where my alchemical journey was realized. While I was a member of the Golden Dawn, I came into contact with an adept who was highly adept in alchemy and was a member of a secret alchemical society called the Heritage Group, which is based in New Zealand. This group teaches spiritual and practical lab alchemy. Once I delved into this society of well-versed alchemists, I became immersed into the studies and practices. Alchemy became my religion. When most people in modern society hear the word alchemy, they think of lead being turned into gold. Although this is somewhat true, it is extremely simple and misleading. The primary purpose of alchemy, be it speculative or operative, is raising vibrations. The process of raising vibrations in most esoteric circles is known as the great work, and the completion of this great work is the creation of the Philosopher's Stone. The Christ referenced the completion of this great work when he said, "It is finished," before giving up his spirit while on the cross. The Philosopher's Stone can have a variety of meanings. In Freemasonry, it is said we are the living stone. This means we begin as rough stone, and through the trials and tribulations of life, we attempt to perfect ourselves. A reflection of this can be seen with the allegories of the crucifixion of the Christ in Christian tradition, the search for the Holy Grail, Osiris slain, and other allegories of the death and resurrection show. The process of alchemy is just the acceleration of the processes of nature. In operative lab alchemy, through the transmutation of materials within the 3 kingdoms of this physical plane, a physical stone can be created. Upon consuming this stone, one is said to obtain everlasting life through the elimination of the draws of the physical and spiritual body. Spagyric or Spagyiria is a method developed by Renaissance-era Swiss alchemist Paracelsus used to describe the alchemical process utilizing the material within the vegetable kingdom. He coined the term to mean to separate and then reunite, indicating that the spagyric preparations are based on separation, extraction, and recombination of the active extractives, including mineral components. Paracelsus thought that each plant has a signature such as shape, color, and texture that serve as hints to which part of the human body the plant can treat. This process consists of raising the vibration of the plant by separating the essence of the plant from its draws. The plant is made up of 3 essential parts, which are mercury, salt, and sulfur. The mercury is the life essence of the plant, which is ethanol alcohol. The salt is the mineral body of the plant, and the sulfur is the essential oil of the plant and holds its personality. These parts of the plant are individually separated, purified, and then recombined, solve et coagula. The process of separating, purifying, and recombining each part can be difficult and time-consuming. First, the mercury needs to be separated from the plant. To obtain the mercury, alcohol needs to be created. A simple method of obtaining mercury is to distill cheap wine using a distillation train. This will result in a distillate of ethanol alcohol, which is the spirit of the entire vegetable kingdom. Grape wine is the preferred wine to use for distillation due to grapes being the most spiritualized fruit in the vegetable kingdom. This is due to its ability to naturally ferment better than any other plant. There's an alchemical saying that all plants aspire to be grapes. Once distilled, this pure ethanol alcohol is then used to create a menstruum by adding it to fresh or dry herbs. The alcohol acts as a solvent and pulls the pure essence or spirit from the body of the plant. So a distillation train consists of a large flask like this one here, connected to a condensing tube like this here. And there are hoses connected to the bottom and top of this condensing tube that flow really ice cold water through the tube to condense the vapor. And then the condensing tube is then connected to a smaller flask where the final mercury of the plant is collected. This mixture of the plant and solvent is called a menstruum because it relates to a cycle of extraction. Menstruum comes from the Latin word menstruus, meaning monthly. This is relative to the magnetic pull the moon has on the earth, thus making the cycles of the moon relevant to alchemical work. The moon has the same effect on the plants as it does on the menstrual cycle of women, as well as the tides of the ocean. For this reason, the ancient alchemists would choose to start their spagyric menstruum on a new moon and end it after the full moon. The ancients believed that the magnetic pull of the moon would aid the solvent in extracting the essence of the plant. Once the menstruum cycle was complete, the essence containing the mercury and sulfur is strained from the mixture of the dead plant body. The mercury and sulfur mixture is then stored in a separate sealed container while the salt is obtained. The mercury is the spirit of the plant, which acts as the plant's life force, and the sulfur, or soul of the plant, contains its personality. For example, its color, taste, smell, and medicinal properties. This is where modern herbalists usually stop when making their herbal tinctures. They are missing a very important step in the process, which is to include the spiritually raised body of the plant. After separating the spirit of the plant, the dead plant matter can be calcined in order to obtain its salts. This is done by putting the dead plant in a high heat resistant crucible and placing it over a high heat source or within a furnace. The stages of calcination are black ash, gray ash, and finally pure white salts. In order to yield the purest salts, each stage of ash will need to soak in a Pyrex dish filled with alcohol. This ash is the pure mineral body of the plant. Once these salts are extracted, you'll be left with the caput mortem, or the alchemical deadhead. These are the worthless remains that can be discarded. The final stage in this spagyric process is to recombine the salt to the mercury and sulfur. This mixture can be then purified even further by running this tincture through a distillation train until there are no particles of residual matter floating within it. Once the tincture is pure, it can be bottled up in amber-colored bottles for proper storage. This will allow the tincture to maintain a long shelf life. The dosage is typically 1 tablespoon under the tongue. Each plant that is used will have a wide variety of medicinal properties, so proper research needs to be done before starting this spagyric process. This process goes hand in hand with spiritual alchemy. The ancient alchemists had the adage, a healthy mind in a healthy body. They set out to purify both the body and their thoughts. These alchemists of old allegedly found the material and spiritual to be complementary in the search for the stone and to fathom the secret laws of God and nature. The spiritual path helped them to remove draws, cognitive misconceptions, fears, and destructive phantoms within the mind. In addition, the controlled intake of their medicinal tinctures allowed them to remove physical blockages, and at the same time, mental blockages that otherwise would lead to imbalance, sickness, and degradation. There is also a correlation with practical lab alchemy and the 3 degrees of the Masonic Craft Lodge. The entered apprentice degree represents the first stage of alchemy, the Negrito or black stage. In this stage, in spagyric alchemy, a plant is chosen for its healing properties or ritual purpose. This plant would be pulled out by its roots. Metal should not be worn during the process of pulling the plant, as ancient alchemists believed that certain metals would contaminate the plant. This plant is then put in a flask and covered with the spirit of wine, where the spirit would absorb the oil of the plant and carry it in its vapor. This mixture is left to steep in a sand bath and is shaken vigorously twice in 24 hours to separate the oil. After this mixture steeps for an alchemical month of 40 days, the plant turns black, a process called caput mortem or deadhead, or the cutting off of its head. The fellow craft degree represents the second stage of alchemy, the albedo or white stage. In this stage, the blackened plant is distilled once again in the distillation train, further separating the mercury or spirit and sulfur or oil from the dead plant matter. This mixture of sulfur and mercury is known by alchemists as heavenly dew. Psalm 133 in the Bible states, dew is often symbolized as a divine blessing. It is also a metaphor for the spiritual gift of resurrection. This process of distillation is symbolized in alchemical text as a pelican, or sometimes a vulture plucking out the heart and other organs and taking them to a high tower, which represents the condensing tube of the distillation train. There is also a piece of lab equipment called the pelican, which resembles the physical appearance of such. The Master Mason degree represents the third stage of alchemy, the rebedo stage or red stage. There are certain elements in this degree that refer to the Hebrew letter Shin, which means spiritual fire. This spiritual fire is the fire of transmutation, and this rebirth is the transmutation from spiritual lead to spiritual gold, the rough ashlar to the perfected stone. In alchemy, the remaining herb is now fermented and is a digested black mass. Alchemically, it's called feces. This feces is then burned in a crucible upon a high heat and is reduced to ashes. This process is known as killing the herb. As the ash continues to burn, it will turn black and eventually reddish in color. When this reddish ash is combined with an alkali or acid, it turns white and is a salt. This salt is thus called raised salts and is referred to the stone that the builders rejected. Once this salt is combined with the previously collected dew, the elixir of life is created, and thus the great work is finished. In future papers, I will discuss the other 2 degrees of alchemy, which are the animal and mineral kingdoms. The processes are very similar to the spagyrical work, but with using different materials, and they're spiritually elevated in the same way. I will also delve deeper into spiritual alchemy, as it is a process that goes hand in hand with practical lab alchemy. The spiritual work reflects the physical work and vice versa. This is the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, as within, so without. This axiom was derived from the Greek god Hermes, who is said to have created the Emerald Tablet, which symbolically describes the complete process of alchemy. This Emerald Tablet has gone through many translations throughout time and shows that this natural art has continued to withstand the test of time. Look within yourself. That is where the kingdom lies, my brothers. Hermes once said his teachings would remain hidden until those worthy of understanding would once more unravel the wisdom. Perhaps that time is near. And brothers, that concludes my paper on Spagyric Alchemy. I will stop the share real quick. There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. Okay, that was a little short. I mean, I'm used to people going on for almost an hour. It's like, okay, you're gonna need to wrap it up now. But you actually were, that's probably one of the shorter ones we have, but it's very interesting. Quick question. Okay, I think you covered this previously, but what is a tincture? You use the word, but I'm not super familiar with it.
A tincture typically is part of this method that most herbalists use, where they'll take a plant matter and emulsify it in alcohol for 40 days or such.
Okay.
And then they usually stop there. They'll strain that plant and have that fluid, and that'll be their tincture. Spagyrics goes further into that, where we burn away the dead plant matter into ash and then recombine it with that fluid.
Okay. And you mentioned speculative versus operative alchemy. I thought that was an interesting phrase there. So there are people who are speculative alchemists in one of these organizations you're in?
Yeah, which pretty much stems from Carl Jung's work, where it's more of a philosophical teaching instead of practical lab work.
Okay.
We also like to call them armchair alchemists.
Okay. That's fair. So just in simple terms, what do you get out of doing this? I guess I'll put it that way.
Well, you transform yourself. You make a good man better, so to speak. It's a
Right.
transmutation. So you see the plant being transformed in the lab,
Mm-hmm.
and that reflects on yourself, because you are also transforming yourself. You're realizing certain aspects within yourself that relate to the practical lab work, and you have the tools to start removing the draws and perfecting oneself and becoming the perfected stone.
Okay. So it is, in that sense, it's a symbolic thing by going through the ritual, if you will, of the lab work that sort of inspires you to make the connection to changing your own life and burning away the unneeded materials and what have you.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Do you literally use, and it sounds, and I'm trying to be respectful, but I'm asking kind of the dumb question because I don't quite, this is so different from most people's normal experience. Obviously, is alchemy. Do you actually consume any of the stuff you make? Is there medicinal properties to it, or what?
Oh yes, definitely. Like one plant I'm using now is lemon balm. So I'll take lemon balm fresh from the garden, put it through this process that I've just presented, and then I'll take that daily. Lemon balm's got medicinal properties. That's good for relaxing. Like at the end of the day, if you want to relax and calm down a bit from a hard day's work, I'll take some lemon balm under a drop under the tongue, equivalent to like a tablespoon, and that'll help me relax. Or I can put it in some tea. But each plant has its own medicinal property, so it's good to research what plant. One of the ones I started using when I started practicing alchemy was echinacea. It's good for the immune system.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I hear about echinacea. Well, of course, there's a lot of, I'm sure you have an opinion about modern medicine, pharmacy, whatever, but like echinacea seems to be one of those buzzwords that is very popular. It's like, this contains echinacea. It seems like there's trendy things like they're selling, like CoQ10 is like the latest thing. There's a lot of commercial products that kind of catch on those words and throw them around. People like, oh, echinacea, I should take that.
For the most part, it's valid information. I mean,
Mhm.
mainstream pharmaceuticals came from ancient alchemy.
Right, that's correct. That's correct. Other questions out there?
I
I
have
was
two. if I
going to
may.
ask. Sorry, Brian, you go first.
Okay, I've got two. You're talking about spirit of wine. Would you use neat vodka as a substitute?
Oh, yes. Yeah, you could use vodka. I recommend anything that's like 80 proof should work when it comes to alcohol.
Okay, and you're talking about, sorry.
You got to keep in mind too that the various alcohols will affect the flavor of the spagyric tincture at the end of the process.
Which
And
is to use an alcohol. Or perhaps gin actually would be a good one.
You can also use vinegar. There's a lot of
Yeah.
alchemists out there that'll use vinegar.
And you were talking about echinacea. I mean, that's a plant that's on the verge over here anyway of being extinct. Why do you use it sort of for such a thing?
Well, it's just like any other for its medicinal properties. If you got a certain thing that you want to cure or like take care of, like if you want to build up your immune system, you would take it something like echinacea for its properties.
But I mean, there are other plants that you could use instead, isn't there?
Oh, definitely. That's just an example of one that I've used.
I'm curious, Brian. I mean, I understand about animals becoming extinct because like their environment changes or there's too many predators, whatever. How do you let a plant become extinct? Can't you just make sure you plant more plants to keep it going? If it's in danger,
Yeah, the plant is restricted to where it grows over here, and it's very, very hard to propagate.
Okay.
So it is hard. I mean, I've tried growing it myself, and it just don't happen for me. But it is a hard one to cultivate.
Okay, makes sense. But there are that's just in your area. I mean, obviously echinacea is it must be growing well somewhere because it's widely available over here. So
yeah, I mean, is it being farmed over there? That's another thing. I didn't think it was actually able to be farmed at the moment.
I really don't know. Like I said, I only hear it. I hear the name from TV ads and whatever, so I'm familiar with the word more than being an expert in any sense on it.
Yeah, I mean, we use it over here is in the same sort of things, but again, I'm not sure how we get it even. So
okay.
Apart from the fact I'm not in the wild.
Hey, I'm sorry, Graham had a question. Go ahead, Graham.
Would you see this practice being used in its common form on a daily basis, say, being used by groups like compound pharmacists or chemists?
Did you say would chemists use this process?
Yeah, compound chemists. The ones that actually.
Oh yeah, I know a guy who's a Freemason in Indianapolis that works for Eli Lilly, and he is actually on board with this ancient alchemy as well. But I've also met chemists elsewhere that they think this information is archaic and it's useless, and they just follow modern chemistry. They want nothing to do with ancient alchemy.
So you also said in your presentation that you leave the tincture for 40 days. Would not putting a tincture under pressure cause or reduce the amount of time that it's needed?
That is true. Typically, or at least from my experience and what I've learned, we use the typical 40-day, which is part of the lunar month or the alchemical month, and it follows like back in like Moses going through the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights.
Yeah. So you wouldn't use.
It's symbolic to the lunar month because you want to follow the moon cycles.
Yeah. So you wouldn't use modern technology to speed up the process.
You could, but it just depends on if you believe that the moon has a magnetic effect on the plant process or the extraction process. Otherwise, if you don't believe that actually happens, you could use a pressure cooker.
So to add to the 40 days, you also have when Christ is about to begin his ministry, he goes from being kind of an unknown 12-year-old in a temple, talking to a bunch of Pharisees and Sadducees. He goes out into the desert. Now think about this and so many different, like even Dune and things like that, how that's been archetyped across our like kind of cultural literature. He goes out and he fasts and he prays by himself for 40 days, like a hermit would be more in medieval time. And then the devil comes and tempts him. And once he gets past three temptations, he starts his ministry. And so that kind of goes back into that, Rodney, as well as Paul does kind of the same thing also in the New Testament.
That's very true. But that almost ties this process in because you got the 40 days, so you have that lunar cycle, that magnetic pull from the moon, and then you got the Trinity there with the three alchemical elements.
But how is it 40 days if it's, I mean, I thought the lunar cycle was like 28 days.
Well,
or it's 40 days that starts at the beginning of the lunar cycle.
That is right there, yes.
Okay. So I don't know much math, but I know that much. Okay.
The ancient Hebrews, they used the lunar calendar as well as other cultures around the planet.
Yep.
So also 40 days is how long it took for the waters to recede after the height of Noah's flood.
Yep. Yep.
And
sorry, but it can't be ignored. That's what I'm trying to help Rodney with in discussion. It's like it's so ancient that the number 40 is so ancient.
Well, number 40 is, from what I've heard, it's a very significant number because for the target audience of the Old Testament, it was 40 such a big number because most people don't have anything that they need to count above 40 to do things. So it's like if you say something is 40 of this or 40 of that, in all of their minds, it's, oh my God, that's huge. Like we say a billion today, and we goes, a billion, ooh, it doesn't have to be a billion, but you say to someone a billion, in their minds, that's a really large number. For the audience of the time, you say 40 and they go, 40, that's a really large number, which is why it's 40 days and 40 nights and 40 years in the desert. And that 40 was chosen symbolically because in everyone's mind, automatically, that's a super big number to them. So it may be more of an allegory than anything else. But
it's interesting, Jeff, that you brought up Noah's Ark and the 40 days with the flood. When the dove, I think it was a sprig of acacia. Didn't the dove have a sprig of acacia in its mouth when it came?
So that was a discussion, literally, kind of over the last 48 hours with me on some Freemason group that all my buddies were on anyway. I mean, it was just like us just doing it in public, like this, and and so my buddy Kadeem is down in Costa Rica, just going to the Grand Lodge of Costa Rica and goofing off and taking some vacation time. And that's, not very shockingly, hey, Roddy, by the way, I know all the doxies and all the bridegrooms and all the Tim Brinkmeyers, and those are all my running buddies too. Whenever I get around them, and gambling and all those guys. But
very good.
And so we were just outside of the U.S., the deacons wear a lot of times a dove in their symbolism instead of the moon and the sun in their staffs and on their jewels and as their symbol and everything. And that just weirds people out when they see a dove in a Blue Lodge, especially if they're not connected to the Allied Masonic degrees, and they've not experienced the Royal Art Mariner's degree or really been taught maybe in their Master Mason's degree about Noah's Ark and kind of some of the Masonic symbolism and connection to that. They just freak out. Like, I've never seen this. Like, where did this come from? Is this Oddfellows? Is it like, some weird spin-off quasi para Masonic group or something? and that was kind of going on, and anyway, we drew it back into Noah's Ark. Myself, David Rosenthal from Orlando, who is a Jewish guy, Kadeem, who's Muslim, and then Jason Wooten, who believes in a higher being from Fort Worth Scottish Rite. So yeah, it was a pretty cool little discussion online, and it reminded me. And I went back and read some scripture. So Jason said, whenever I said I love the dove, he said, "Well, don't forget about the ravens too. The ravens were there also." And he brought that in.
And just to clarify, it was an olive leaf that the dove brought back.
Olive leaf is what. Yeah.
But
I think sometimes in Masonic lore, we take license and make, let's put it all together.
Right.
But it was some kind of everlasting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The acacia tree, the acacia wood was used to build the Ark of the Covenant and the tabernacle.
Right.
Moses' Ark was built from acacia wood. So acacia it's mentioned 29 times in the Bible. So it does have significance.
Gopher wood is the Ark of Noah. And then Moses' Ark, and when he was a baby, is like reeds from the River Nile.
Yeah.
So so you can tell where my expertise is, Chris. By the way, if you were wondering where it just is always sitting there. But hey, Rodney, I do have a question for you about Paracelsus.
Go right ahead.
I've been studying him a little bit. I've been directed to him. I'm in the process of writing a book, and a lot of what I talk about is interpretive. I'm trying to give the average Freemason an opportunity to read something, hopefully, and get inspired to say, I need to incorporate interpreting symbolism, not only myself individually, but I want to draw my lodge into this or create a culture within my Masonic community. My sphere of influence to have these kind of discussions and really kind of explore these kind of things in just a normal kind of, instead of opening up very poorly ritualistically, introducing all the wannabes and the has-beens, and then reading a couple bills, talking about what casserole is going to be brought next time and who's going to be adding in the fresh watermelon or whatever because it's summertime, and then saying we're going to be back here next month and just keeping the charter on the wall. And so with that, people have directed, as I go out and I speak, I'm doing this on purpose. I'm writing the book kind of very organically. As I go out and speak or attend things like this or whatever, I things keep popping up. And so I'd like to have with you at some other time, maybe a little bit more in depth, get a chance to read your paper and kind of figure out how that could be incorporated. Because Paracelsus, the way he is distilling everything down to bring it back up, is really what I've been told I'm doing in my techniques that I'm teaching. Is like where you really kind of break everything down and you get it kind of down to this primal, elemental level to kind of unpack it again and expand upon it and kind of bring it up to a different level of knowledge. I don't want to say higher, but I'm saying to take it in a different direction.
It kind of is higher because you're distilling it down, eliminating all the bullshit, so to speak.
Well, and I think we can say that in this setting, but I have to be careful whenever I get to the kind of entry level, not to call it, whatever you can call it, because they get so upset whenever you say, well, I've joined the higher degrees of Freemasonry in the Scottish Rite and the York Rite, and I'm in this. And they go, well, you just think you're like Mr. Big, Mr. Big Stuff. And you're like, no, I've studied further. I've gone past, the first grade, the fifth grade, the eighth grade.
If I could interject something, Jeff, I get in a lot of discussion on social media about these things, and these topics keep coming up. There is, from what I've seen, there are far more people out there saying it's not right that you say the Scottish Rite and the Royal Arch are better than the Blue Lodge, that these higher degrees, nothing is above the Master Mason degree. There are far more people complaining that we're saying that than there are actually anybody who actually says that. Anybody who promotes the Scottish Rite that I know of, and the Royal Arch. But the Scottish Rite is numbered, which is why I think the Scottish Rite gets more attention of higher degrees, because we actually have 4th, 5th, 6th. The Royal Arch Council and Commandery is about 12 degrees, but they're not numbered. So maybe the Scottish Rite gets more focus. No one in the appendant body says, you're better than anybody in the Blue Lodge because you're in. We stress there is no higher degree than the Master Mason degree. However, there is additional light, there's additional learning that you can take on. So it's not that we hold ourselves out to be better, but there are a lot of people who are complaining all the time that we hold ourselves out to be better. You know what I mean? It's like more people complaining about the problem than are actually causing the problem, from what I've observed.
Yeah, I just try to be in this discussion. I'm just trying to, like Rodney said, I just don't want all the I just don't want all the other stuff, and just purely listen to don't worry about where it's going. Just purely listen to my method, and that's what I'm asking people to do. You can't order anybody doing it.
Absolutely. And there's an interesting thing I've read. I've been trying to get in touch with Andrew Hammer, who wrote the book Observing the Craft, and he was active in Lodge in Arlington, and then moved to DC. This led into the whole traditional observance movement and whatever that's out there in American Masonry. And one of the things, I love the book, Observing the Craft. It's only like 180 pages. It's very well written, and it definitely makes you think. And I don't agree with everything that Brother Hammer puts out there, but he says, in essence, the Blue Lodge needs to offer everything esoteric that a Mason needs. And we should not be diverting our attention and our energy in appendant bodies when we should be focused on the Blue Lodge. And my response to that is, well, if the Blue Lodge stepped up and offered the spirituality and the esotericism and the exploration of symbolism that Masons are craving, no one would have a reason to go join an appendant body. But the fact that the Blue Lodges are lacking in what they're offering is why most Masons today are drawn to an appendant body. So it's kind of like you can't criticize someone for going somewhere else for more light if your Blue Lodge isn't offering the light it's supposed to be offering. So I would love it. I would love it if everything I get in the Scottish Rite and the Royal Arch, I got in my Blue Lodge and I only had to pay dues in one place and go to one place. I'd be fine with that. But that's not the reality. Like you said, the majority of Blue Lodges are social clubs. We get together and we enjoy our fellowship, and it's great, and there's nothing wrong with what it's offering, but there's a whole lot more out there. And that's why some of us get into the research lodges and many of us go into the appendant bodies, is because the Blue Lodge is not fulfilling its duty that it was set up to do. It's got all the trappings of it, but like you say, the biggest complaint most Masons have is, I went to lodge and we went to the trouble of opening and we read all the bills and we argued over trivial stuff and we closed and went home. I didn't learn anything. I really didn't grow. I didn't delve into anything.
We didn't do anything.
Yes.
We didn't do anything.
Exactly.
And if you sit around and so one of my kind of to sprinkle in some stuff. One of my things that concept I've come up with, and it's not that like supersonic crazy everything. I just do it with my buddies, and I'm like, hey, let's just take a symbol and let's just all put it like literally in the middle of us. And I like a lot of times I like to only put in front of myself and two other people in between us physically or metaphorically, and just say, what do you think about this? I'll go first. So let's talk about the 24-inch rule. And you just kind of freestyle. And guess what? If Rodney, Chris, and I did it, and then I turned and I did it with Jason Wooten and David Rosenthal, and then guess what? It's different every time.
Of course.
It's because that's because people don't understand that magic of, we only have 8 people come to a meeting. Perfect. you have two groups that you can interpret symbolism for 15 minutes and have time to do it, and everybody gets a voice. Wow,
Right.
that sounds really fun. Let's go do that next Tuesday night at 7:00. You know,
Excellent idea.
Do what, Rodney?
That's an excellent idea. Having like a Masonic meditation on one
but you can't. You got to be careful. Yeah, remember, it's the altar of interpretation. You got to, it's always. I'm a marketing guy too. I'm a sales and marketing guy. So you got to make sure your message is as broad. For me, it's going to be as broad as possible on this one. But I like it. Yeah. Go ahead.
We don't teach third graders sixth grade work unless they're up to the speed. And if we've got to accommodate those at the level that our members are at, rather than bring them up to our level. Now, you know, if they're not ready to receive the information at the higher level, then it's not for us to overwhelm them and at the same time perhaps disenfranchise them by saying, "Hey, look, I learned something new today, but it's above my head, so I'm not coming anymore." So you can.
That's true.
It works both ways. So this is why we have allied bodies, so that we can move them into a direction, guide them to seek what they want to achieve in Freemason. If they just want to be Master Masons, sit in lodge, come, that's fine. If they're looking for something else, we can deliver it through our lectures in the Blue Lodge, or we can palm them off or encourage them to seek in other allied Masonic degrees or whatever. And I don't want to use that word lightly because there is an allied Masonic degree, but in other orders other than the Blue Lodge.
So for me, I just say do your Freemasonry the way you want to do it, and allow me, and then that tolerance that we're supposed to be teaching and practicing, and just let me do it the way I want to. Don't stand there and we're at kind of a large meeting or something, or you and I cross paths and you tell me how I'm not really a full Mason in the Fort Worth, Arlington, Tarrant County part of DFW, Texas, because I'm not a member of the shrine right around the corner and doing all the same things you're doing, dressing up like a clown and running around on running in figure eights in the middle of the street during a parade, and just don't impose that upon me. I think that's kind of where our, those of us that are Americans, that's what we've been taught all our lives. Don't try to impose what you think should be being done upon me. And
we offer it, and if you're not into it, fine. I think nothing wrong with a Mason who thinks, I want to be comfortable when I go to lodge. I want to wear a polo shirt and khakis. I don't want to wear a tie because I want to just relax and enjoy myself. I get their point. But then I have the brothers who are all into the observant body saying, you should dress up for church. You dress up for a funeral. You dress up for formal events. Masonry should be an experience where you're leaving the mundane world behind and coming into a sacred space. We talk about sacred spaces here a lot. And if you're not willing to pay $300 a year for the privilege, if you're not willing to put on a suit, if you're not willing to pay $20, $30 for an excellent meal, and you're just settling for hot dogs or fried chicken, what is the point? Masonry should be something where you up your game and you're experiencing something that you're not getting in the real world. So you can go join a country club and wear a polo shirt and hang out with your buddies and drink and socialize, and those are your friends, and that's great, but Masonry should be something more. So I kind of see both arguments, and I think if we're selling Masonry on the cheap, we're gonna have cheap Masonry. So maybe it makes sense to up our game and demand more from our members. But I don't know. You can go both ways in that. You can we can have a whole hour, and we might have an hour discussion here about whether masonry should be accessible to the lowest common denominator, or if we should be bringing people up to the next level, which is what we're supposed to be doing.
So sometimes I go to Masonic, I call them Masonic meetings just because I stopped putting labels on them because I go to so many different types of stuff. If I'm attending something that my Blue Lodge building, which also Chapter Council Commandery meets, I'm wearing this time of the year when it's 100 degrees heat index in my house and the sun hadn't gone down yet, and I'm going that way at 5-6 o'clock in the afternoon, and I work in outside cells, and I'm going to wear pretty much the same stuff that I wear to go make sales calls. You know, a golf shirt, some technical pants, you know, like that. If I'm at home working out of the house, I'm going to wear some pants, and I'll wear probably my sandals that, you know, cover my toes, but I won't have on socks. I'll have on a fishing shirt untucked because I'm a past master. I'm a past everything, and I'm there just to support. Right. And I don't like, even for my own purpose, I dress like that to go to my commandery meeting, not my full uniform, because I want them not to have to rely on me. The only thing I do in the Order of the Temple, if you know that, is the one of the 3 hermits parts and the guards part. And sometimes I'll bring, if they say they need me to do other parts, but I don't want them to have to rely on me. There's some other things going on there too. But then I'm a member of about 3 I can think of off the top of my head that I wear a tuxedo for, you know, or 4 or 5 probably in the invitational bodies in New York, right? Where I wear a tuxedo at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning because that's what that group intends for me to do. And so, and I'm happy doing, and you know, and that adds variety, and it's not like the same thing that I get tired of. So my thing is just what Graham was talking about is trying to meet people where I loved it whenever he said, and I think are you in Scotland, Graham? Where are you at?
No, I'm in Australia.
Australia. Okay. Sorry. I apologize. I think I know different accents, and I hear something anyway, but I loved it where you said we got to meet them where they're at. And that's kind of what I'm kind of promoting all the time in these type of discussions, whenever people agree with me and whenever they don't agree with me. And you know, I kind of stay steadfast in that, Chris, in that I'm trying to say, you know, just step back, you know, almost like challenging them a little bit, saying, just step back out of yourself and say, what are you really, what vibe or energy or thoughts are you trying to put out there? Like you're making your own, you're making your own returns. You're making your own prophecy come true, because if you're just putting that out there, or you're allowing your group to do that, and so many, you know, and I've even joked, and probably not the best thing to do, whenever I've done a Master Mason's degree and we finished, and I know the guy pretty well in Arlington, because we're Texas, we do a lot of degree work, and known as kind of a ritual factory or degree factory or whatever, and raised 12 Master Masons a year in the last 25 years, pretty much average to 15 a year. So you got to do a lot of EAs and fellowcrafts to get to 12, 15 Master Masons. So we're doing 50, 60 degrees a month, or not a month, a year. And so you get kind of rote in what you do. And I've kind of joked that, hey, now congratulations, you're a Master Mason. You can flip down your bib, and you get to listen to the water bill being read. And that's about the height of the Blue Lodge experience. And I love my Blue Lodge. And, you know, it houses my Chapter Council Commandery, and we do other things there. You know, it's a nice big central building, but at the same time, there's like something kind of, okay, we can't do certain things in that group. I have to go literally to the other side of the U.S. or the other side of the world to get fed.
I wanted to interject something, Jeff, because I thought of this while we were talking here. This is a great discussion here, even though it's moving away from what Rodney started with, but that's okay. That's how these things evolved. I mentioned that we need to respect I guess the one argument of the dressing up, the observance side of things is, if we don't treat masonry with respect, if we don't show reverence, if we're not dressing up for the occasion and paying more for our dinners, whatever, then we're not getting as rich an experience. I'm sitting here in a polo shirt and shorts. Okay. I could be sitting here with no pants, but there are other people in my house, so I at least wear shorts. But I would not wear a t-shirt to these meetings. Okay. I wear a collared shirt to the meetings. I've never worn a tie to a meeting. I can count maybe on one hand the number of people in ties and jackets, Brian can attest, who show up for these Zooms. But I'll always wear a collared shirt, so I look somewhat professional for the occasion. But, you see everybody here. We're knee deep in it. This is exactly the sort of masonry that I wanted to practice when I joined 37 years ago, okay? This is what I want out of masonry. This is the in-depth, esoteric, serious delving into the craft. And I'm wearing a polo, I don't feel that I'm underdressed. And then maybe the fact that we're on Zoom and we're not in person, but I think everybody here has the serious frame of mind of wanting to build a sacred space. And it's something that I'm on the road towards figuring out what we're doing, but we're doing it as we go. And I'm trying to follow along and figure out, what are we doing? And are we where I want us to be yet? Or is there still more I've got to push us towards to get us to that sacred space? But what we do here, the 10 of us are here today, what we do is something I'm not getting in the Blue Lodge or even the Research Lodge. So we're doing something right. But again, I don't have to overdress. So
but two things I'll take out of that.
I want to make sure Terry gets a chance to talk, because he was
yeah.
Go ahead.
You wear what you wear to church. Well, I wear, for the last 10 plus years, I wear what I describe to church, and even less whenever I was part of the Sunday morning staff. I would wear a T-shirt with Builder Kids on it,
right?
And blue jeans, because I was helping small kids. And then the other thing is, it also took, I think, 3 continents to get the 10 of us, 3 continents to get to find your tribe. Yeah, and thank God we have the modern things, and we're not as isolated as we were 25, 35 years ago, Chris, and we can find each other electronically where we're at.
I never would have met Brian or Graham 10 years ago. I just wouldn't. No chance. Yeah. I'd probably meet you at Masonic Week, but I wouldn't know Joe Martinez, and he's just 4 hours away. I wouldn't meet half the people I met if it wasn't for freaking COVID and starting Zoom meetings to get around not being able to be in person. Go ahead, Terry. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to put in here.
So I would offer this. We, in Freemasonry, teach an overview of using King Solomon's temple. And so to answer the dress, the decorum, the sacred space creation, yes, everyone was allowed to approach the temple. They came as they were. We meet them where they are. But if we go back and we just simply walk through, how do we get from the outer courts into the Holy of Holies? It's not a come as you are. You arrived as you are. But there was a purpose for that one day a year entry into the Holy of Holies, and it was a preparation of that sacred space. So the men that don't understand creating an inner sacred space, of course they're not going to see any importance in dressing for the occasion, as it were. And so that's part of a process of that preparation. If you're just saying we wear tuxes, you hadn't done anything except dress the clowns into fancy clothes. So that would be one means of explaining it to people, is that's part of a process. If we're not able to articulate what the entire premise of Freemasonry and its kindred sciences are, I'm curious how this osmosis of just being around good men makes one be better. If we use what Rodney was talking about, the alchemical process, That's distillation. Just offering that as a suggestion to address people. Why can't I just come as I am? Well, you can. You just can't come into the Holy of Holies, into this sacred space. Masonry is a solitary pursuit. We just get in a collective environment to compare the results. That's all I have to say on that.
I like that, Terry. That was well said.
That was great. Let me add, it is a alchemical process. When you put on your nice suit or your tuxedo, you're separating yourself from your mundane self. It's kind of a reflection of your spiritual self. You're raising that vibration. All of us can attest to. We feel much better as men when we're wearing our suits in the lodge.
I think so. Okay, and I've thought of this as a compromise of sorts because I am very active in the Scottish Rite and I pay attention to our regalia and whatever we were there. Okay, so what about this? What if a Blue Lodge says, because it's important, especially for maybe the degrees or maybe for the status as well, we want uniformity. We want people to show up. And there are people who say, you know, I can't afford a suit. Honestly, if a grown man doesn't have at least one suit, I think there's something wrong. But people make that argument. People can't afford a suit. I don't buy that, but that's just me. I mean, what do you wear to a job interview, right? But what about this as an idea? A lodge invests in buying a dozen or so black robes, like you wear in the Scottish Rite, the nondescript type choir robes, the black robes, and you keep them there at the lodge. And when you have a degree, everybody shows up, polo shirt and khakis, but everybody who shows up who's in the degree puts on one of the robes, puts on the apron and jewel over the robe, and you hold the degree, and everybody's dressed exactly alike. You have the degree, you confer it wearing the robes, and when you're done, after you close the meeting, take the robes back off and you socialize, you're back in your polos. There's uniformity. There's a sense of I've changed for the occasion. The candidate is impressed that everyone around him looks uniform. Because honestly, if everybody's in a tux and the one guy forgot and he wore like he's in a collared shirt and khakis, but he's not in a tux, the candidate's going to notice, well, wait, they're not uniform. So this would give us uniformity. It would give us a sense to step out of ourselves, and it's a robe. And as soon as the meeting's over, you're back in your comfortable clothes again. And that way no one has to buy a suit or a tux to attend the meeting and take part in the degree. What do y'all think about that as wearing robes for degree work?
That's a great idea. Actually, I'm currently in the process of discussing that exact thing with the new lodge in Indiana, Circumpunct. The officers are in the process of coming up with robes to wear for our initiations, and we're even thinking about having certain color robes for certain officer positions, but that's still a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have trouble in my country because we dress up to go to lodge. Now, whether it be a tux, as you call it, or a dinner suit, as we call it, or whether it's a business suit, or even if it gets down to the more common of just a sports jacket and trousers, then that's fine. But anything below that is seen that you're not really interested in, you know, and like you dress up for the occasion, as we've been talking about. But if you dress up, you also make that person a bit more, how do we put this? Like you're serious, looks like you know what you're talking about type thing, because you've been brought up to a different standard or different level, as opposed to every person in the street.
It's similar to the UK. If you don't show a lounge suit, you're not allowed in.
Sorry, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So you've actually had to turn people away who came up not properly dressed.
Of course.
Okay. See, and that's the thing.
Chris.
Yes, sir.
I think whenever you join any place or any organization, they have their rules, right? So at the beginning you join, they tell you this is what we do, this is how we dress. If at that point you think it's a problem for you, then don't join. If you think, we wear polos to lodge and you're happy with it, join. If you don't like it, don't join. But you don't join, you join, and then in the middle of, after 2 years, then you start saying, oh, why can't we just come in our normal clothes? Why do we have to dress up? You're not doing this every day. This is maybe once a month or twice a month. You're trying to make that effort. You're creating some sort of something different from the norm that you do every day. In my lodge, all the officers have to wear tuxedo. The wardens and the master have to wear, tails. And then rest of the members can wear business suit. Wow. Some occasions when it's not, maybe don't have any degree work, or it's just maybe, we have just maybe a ladies' night or a lodge social activity after the lodge meeting. We might say everybody should put on, a business suit. But we always want to make that kind of impression to the candidates. So on initiations, definitely, all the wardens and the master have to be in tuxedo. The officers standard, you have to be in tuxedo all the time. So we try and make some effort. You have to come in your tails, well dressed, white tie, bow tie, everything. Same as installations, because that's what our lodge tradition is. So we tell you, if you don't like it, the other lodges you can join, where they can allow you to come in wearing a black shirt, red tie, green suit, whatever you choose. That's your problem. But don't join and then later you decide that no, you don't like it, so you're trying to change what the lodge traditions is.
You bring a good point. And nothing against, Jeff kind of makes the other argument, which is like, well, it's like, this is what I wear every day. This is what I wear for business. Now, let me ask you this, Jeff. If you're not an officer and you just want to show up at a meeting, it's like, well, I'm in polo and khakis because that's where I wear to work every day, and I'm coming. Or the guy who's like, I'm coming from work and I'm going to get cleaned up, but I'm going to be in work clothes, but I'm going to make it to work, make it to lodge. And if you're just showing up to sit on the sidelines, that's kind of an argument. But if you're an officer and the tradition in that lodge is all officers will wear suits, will wear tuxedos for the stated, say, for example, aren't you obligated, if you're an officer, to meet that code, as opposed to just attending?
And that was the implicit thing that I probably left out. I'm speaking from my 25-year membership in the same lodge, actively going, and I have chosen as a past master, as a past officer, whether it be in my Blue Lodge or in the Scottish Rite, there we have a dress code. You wear certain things if you want to be kind of like, I think someone said, taken seriously. But I've done it whenever I first was going through the 4 lines, and I would come with my multiple jackets especially for chapter council command. We used to meet chapter council commandery on the same night, and I would start at 5:45 in one particular dress. And a lot of times I was just changing my jacket or my tie out, but I would have on the sports jacket, a dress shirt, a tie, slacks, more slacks. And then I would do that in the Blue Lodge. And what I found whenever I became past master is I got people kind of treating me as this like picture on the wall. And I was almost playing this part of I wasn't approachable. And I wanted to be back more on the level, especially when I went to my Blue Lodge, not like, oh, look at you over there. You're dressing up every time, way above 3 levels up, and I can't come over and feel like I can approach you. And so I felt like I was it was more of a almost like a way that I could not that I was trying to give everybody in the room. I don't know. I was going back to what Graham said. I was trying to meet people on their level. And a lot of times also I was just struggling to get there on time. And I was just like, in the past, whenever I was an officer, and to make an impression and to kind of go along with a certain dress code that the master had asked me. And whenever I was worshipful master, I even, even my appointed officers, we went and I had discussions with, I have a member of my lodge who's a tattoo artist. He doesn't wear, this is Texas. He wears flip flops and shorts, probably 12 months out of the year to go to work. and do and to tattoo people, his clients. And he would and he would come, and I was just like, Johnny, we gotta go shopping, and we gotta get you some khakis at least. And can you go buy, I mean, at that time, probably Walmart had a inexpensive, within $50, you could find a way to at least get some kind of dress pant, some kind of khaki, and a blazer back then, jacket. And I got him in a polo, and everybody calmed down. He was my musician, and everybody calmed down. And and it was so I've done those things, and it's it is. I have Blue Lodges that I'm a member of, and we all wear the same thing because we're all a member of the same college fraternity, and that's kind of what we were all pledges, and we all wear what we used to have to wear on a Tuesday or Friday or whatever in college as pledges. A navy blazer, a white or a blue shirt, a stripe. We all wear the same striped tie, and then you're supposed to wear khakis, and you have to wear some kind of leather footwear that right. is your choice. I go through all these things, and it's just where I'm at and what I feel like that group norm is. I'm a chameleon in my dress, and so. And being in Texas, we're just a lot more casual. The further you go west and south from the Mississippi River, and if you've never lived over here and really understand how kind of, we have billionaires walking around in $40 dress shirts and $25 pairs of jeans and have $200 pair of boots on, and they're driving a $40,000 pickup truck, but they're billionaires. And they're just down to earth because they own. And that's my industry. I know guys. That
okay, but we're kind of going a far field here, Jeff. I appreciate your input, but okay. Were there any other specific questions for Rodney about the talk? Because we did kind of get into other things, which is interesting. But we want to make sure we addressed any questions people had specific to the talk.
Hi, yeah, I had a specific question about the. You mentioned the spirit of wine. So is that something you make? You do like take wine and distill it? Because you said it needs to be.
That is correct. I take grape wine, which I usually just buy the cheapest large bottle of wine, and I'll run it through my distillation train, and the final product of that is ethanol alcohol, which is the spirit of wine, and that's the mercury of the plant kingdom.
Okay, cool. And do you have like that specific setup, like that distillation train? Do you have like a?
Yeah, I broke it down a little bit. I tried showing it a little bit during my slideshow. I'll bring them back out real quick.
I was driving for part of it, so I might have missed.
Oh, excuse me. So the distillation train will start with a large flask.
Yeah.
Like this, and then that'll be connected to a condensing tube. Like this right here. You can see it. Mm-hmm. And then there'll be hoses on the top and bottom of the condensing tube where ice cold water will run through the hose and through the tube to condense the vapor, because that first flask will be on a heating element, and it'll be heated to the point where the spirit or the alcohol from that wine will turn to vapor, go through the tube, and then condense back down into a distillate of ethanol alcohol in a smaller flask.
Okay. And you just hermetically seal that whole thing, and.
Yep, correct. It's all hermetically sealed.
Do you use like Molly coat on those joints, or how do you seal it?
I've been just using petroleum jelly on the joints.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I guess those. And do you have like written instructions that would be that we can follow, like with the amounts of alcohol and the time frames and all that?
Yes, I actually wrote my email address in the chat. If you want to email me, I can
okay. Yeah,
give you another paper I wrote on the instructions on how to do this process.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I actually started drafting an email already. I'll just click send on it.
Right on. I appreciate that.
All right, cool. Thanks.
All right. All right, so we wrap up with a technical question again. That's great. This is great, and I want to have more discussions like what Jeff and all of us and Graham and all we all brought up. There's a lot of things about masonry that we love discussion here. I think one of the awesome things about these Zoom meetings that we've had here for going on over 3 years is just, and someone changed our captions for some reason. So anyway, yeah, what we're doing in this Zoom meeting, I think it's kind of like, I feel like I'm on the edge of something that's really awesome, and it's great what we're doing, but it's like we're moving towards something that I don't even fully comprehend what we're moving to. And I've babbled about this in the past year, so I'm trying to coalesce those thoughts. But I like the idea that we achieve a sacred space here. We achieve a level of esoteric exploration that, to me, is what Masonry was about, and that's why I joined. At the beginning of the meeting, we were talking about appendant bodies, and as I said, if the Blue Lodge offered what Masons are seeking when they join, you wouldn't need to go join an appendant body to learn more, because we'd be covering all the bases, and we aren't. And the biggest complaint about Masonry is we don't do anything in the Blue Lodge. And you should have, I think every lodge should have education at every meeting. Present a paper, bring someone in to give a talk. This paper is available online if you don't have a speaker available. And if you're really interested, you're going to seek out a research lodge or an independent body or both, and you're going to look for more in Masonry there. So I think that it's kind of like we draw from 10% of the population. Only 10. Let's assume 10% of the population can become Masons, right? That we want to draw, and we bring those men in. Of those who are in the lodge, and they may be officers, and they may learn the ritual and be active members and be a great guy and all, only 10% of those are really digging deep into what Masonry seriously offers. And I think that our group, our collective, this tribe that I'm slowly building, are in that 10% of the 10%, you know? And that's in my mind. I want to do a paper exploring that, explaining how that is, because really, I'm not preaching to the choir unless I'm in a room like this. Okay, when I give a talk in the Blue Lodge, some people are going to pay attention and really enjoy it. Some people are going to say, "Hey, that was really nice. I enjoyed it." Some will say it's too long, and some will say, "I'm going to go find a research lodge to join because I like what you said and I want more Masonic light." So I realize it's not going to reach everybody. But I love the fact that we have what we have here. I appreciate all of you for making the effort. Many of you are here, long-time attendees, and I see it and I recognize it, and I appreciate y'all being here, because we're doing something better than what the Blue Lodge is offering. And the only thing I wish I could do different is get more people to attend. But I have to realize that I'm not going to attract everybody in my lodge or even everybody in my research lodge to get involved and attend these things. But for those who do find us, this is where you need to be. So I think it's great and I love it. And I wish I didn't feel like I'm constantly trying to make it better, because I feel like we're not where I want to be yet, but maybe I need to be more grateful for what I've got so far, if that makes sense. Really? Anyhow,
can I just be brief? Chris?
Yeah.
But for those people who are interested, we've done it here in Australia. I'm not too sure whether you guys do it in the States. We invite members of the Mark or other allied degrees, the Rose-Croix guys, the Scottish Rite, and all that, to come to the Blue Lodge, enter as their own order, and give a talk on what their order does, and then from there they may encourage members to join that particular order, or there may be questions following up, and that way we, as higher degrees in Freemasonry than the standard 3 degrees, are selling the concept of the other degrees and enlightening those that may need it, by allowing them to come to us rather than doing it any other way.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
That's a great idea. For example, my AMD lodge in Indiana, we met at my Blue Lodge and had just kind of like an open house to kind of present what we're about, because there was a lot of members that had no idea what the AMD was or even existed.
Right. Yep. Okay. And I do want to say that our next meeting, our next unstated, will be July the 6th at 10 a.m. It's a Saturday as always. And Eric Larson will be giving a talk on the Swedish Rite, and he'll delve more into the origins of the Swedish Rite and the differences between like the Blue Lodge, the Green Lodge, and all the different bodies that make up the Swedish Rite. We've had a couple talks on the Swedish Rite in the past, and I kind of wanted to get more into now that we've done the overview, I want to delve more into the specifics of how they do things a little differently than most of us who practice the York Rite in most places in the world. So that should be most interesting. That's on the 6th. I have my Scottish Rite reunion coming up this month, so I'll be at that. So this will be the only unstated this month. But we do have more coming up. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. I do promise that this meeting will be up. Hopefully this next week I'll manage to get all of my backlog of unstateds cleaned up, edited, and deployed to Zoom for people to watch. But we have about 50 or more videos up there for you to watch. So if you want to watch more, please check out YouTube. So we have them there. And the Research Lodge is doing a lot. Our next meeting will be in August in Chesapeake, which is in my area. And we have brother Jason Hicks will be coming up and giving a talk. He's been on here more than once as a speaker, and he'll be speaking in person. And we're looking forward to that. So a lot going on in the research lodges. We have a 6th research lodge starting in the western part of the state. They should be getting their dispensation so they can meet formally as a research lodge. They're a club at the moment. And it's been a slow go waiting for them to get the word from Grand Lodge to actually meet as a lodge. But it's exciting that the western part of the state is getting a lodge. So that'll be 6 in the state. And some, like Jeff, you're in Texas, there's only one research lodge for the whole state of Texas, which surprises me that there aren't more. So
that's a whole discussion that if you want to keep this going where you're ending it.
No, I'm wrapping up, but I'm just
defer that to another time and place.
I'm throwing that out there that most lodges have. That's on my list of things to do is catalog how many American Grand Lodges have a research lodge. I presume most have 1. We have 5, soon to be 6, which I think is more than most any other state. So I'm just curious if there's more out there.
Ours is chartered directly out of the Grand Lodge. I know all of them are, but this one is like directly tied to like almost a committee level to our Grand Lodge, and that's why there's not
more of them. Understood.
They don't want competition, is the way I'll in that.
All right. Well, I do appreciate everybody coming out today. It's 11:30, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. But great discussion, and Brian is sending balloons. You're on mute there, Brian.
Absolutely no idea what happened then.
Brian is celebrating something over there. I don't know. But appreciate it. Thank you for making things very festive, Brian. So again, if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you all on July 8th. Thank you again, Rodney. That was a great talk. Short as it was, we spent much more time talking about other stuff, but we had your talk to start us off. But it was very interesting. We've had like 3 or 4 alchemy-related talks here over the years, so they almost need their own like playlist where people go watch just the alchemy portion of our stuff. But I love digging into that. You will not find the word alchemy mentioned in most lodges, so it's kind of neat that we're bringing that to bear, that people can hear about this other element that ties into the craft. So it's cool stuff. This is exactly what I'm looking for, is esoteric stuff that's not commonly discussed. So, all right. So thank you, Rodney. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. You all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.